This week's episode was brought to you by James Harrington. If you also enjoy The Whole Rabbit and would like to help us keep making esoteric content every week, please visit www.patreon.com/thewholerabbit, where for a mere $5 you can get all the extended episodes, bonus stickers, and Discord access for just, well, I already said it, $5. You can also get a tarot reading from yours truly each month for $20. This week's episode is one of my favorites in a long time. I had no idea that fancy dirt could be so interesting. We discussed the programmable quartz, poisonous malachite, Dan Aykroyd's crystal skull vodka, and even moldavite flush. In the extended episode, we discussed Lucifer's crown emerald, John Dee's obsidian scrying mirror, and what it's got to do with both Enochian magic and the Aztec god Tezcatlipoca. And at one point, I even confused John Dee's scrying mirror with the shoe stone and make some confusing commentary that really only applies to the mirror and not so much the crystal ball. So with that in mind, thank you and enjoy the show.
Oh, it's not Adam, it's Ian on the podcast.
You could call him Dim Tool.
Yeah, really. Anyway, Tim was like, anyway, you're not supposed to mix these chemicals. And then the other guy was like, yeah, it's like, isn't it? Like, they teach that in like high school chemistry class, and nobody should ever do that. And Tim is like sitting there like, yeah, dude, no. Like, they're doing like the cutthroat thing at him, like, don't talk about that, we'll get demonetized, we'll get shut down. Like, don't, keeps repeating it over and over again because he wants to show that he knows which chemicals they are. He's like, dude, why don't you guys know that? Like, everyone's like, oh my fucking god, rolling their eyes.
Fuck up. Everybody knows that. Everybody knows that.
Why don't we give the Unabomber bomb design too?
I mean, he didn't need one.
I mean, like, you know, you just put chemicals together to make a bomb, but we don't need to tell everyone what the chemicals are.
I used to
make gunpowder.
How to make gunpowder? You just crush up a bunch of nerds and pour Coca-Cola on it, right?
I mean, do y'all want to know?
No.
Okay.
I'm
lame ass.
I'm recording you.
Oh.
I know.
What if I'm a spy? You don't know. What if I work for fucking Hillary Clinton or some shit?
The government is not watching out for people making gunpowder. They're watching out for people making fucking nitroglycerin or some shit like that.
Or LSD, right?
Fucking, yeah, assholes.
Isn't nitroglycerin the stuff in hot dogs?
Oh, that's nitrides.
Luke, you don't deserve a podcast.
Oh, no. No, he's very entertaining, though.
Can we get a welcome to The Whole Rabbit?
Hold on a minute.
He wants to go.
Yeah. I'm out of material.
I am a gorilla.
I am a gorilla.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to The Whole Rabbit, where we do more than just do a barrel roll. We rock you all night while getting stoned on crystal math, because this week we're discussing gems, crystals, and stones, what they're all about, why we like them, and how they might be used in the art and science of magic. I'm joined this week by Mari-sama, the rock hard.
Oh, nice.
And Dingus, the rock hard.
Yeah, for real.
Yeah.
The dry cleaner of dingleberries, Dr. Dingus.
What? Why are we doing this twice? Why twice? It was just fine. Oh, well, I guess I'm half the show.
Malachor 5, the mute, or maybe the multifaceted, depending on how many people are still looking for yerba mate in the LA area. Because it is a hipster drink desert.
I
Yerba
do
mate.
have the crystal command.
The crystal what?
Do you have the Fiji water?
Yes, we do have the Fiji water.
Do you have dark chocolate Dove?
Yo,
Negative.
do not talk shit on dark chocolate Dove. That shit is delicious.
It's good.
It
Yeah,
is.
that's bomb. That's bomb stuff.
I think hipster chocolate, asshole. I guess I'm kind of a hipster, though.
Who'd have thunk a soap company could make such good chocolate?
A what company?
It's Dove brand soap. It's the
Oh.
same company.
You're kidding.
What the
Yeah, it's
fuck?
weird.
No, it is. Isn't that cool?
That is
I learned
cool.
I learned that when I stocked shelves at Target.
Seriously?
But they
Yeah,
don't make chocolate soap, though. Why?
No, I know, right? Or like
I wanna
bubble bath
watch.
for the chicks to have while they're eating the chocolates.
Fucking Willy Wonka ass shower.
Well, I think the Dove might be sacred to Venus, right?
Yeah, it is.
Beauty
Yeah.
thing. Yeah.
So I think Venus might sit in a bubble bath eating chocolate. She might be about that.
Yeah, I'd say so. That seems about right.
So, important question to get things started. Dingus, how is a shop vac useful when working with THE crystals? Please give a technical explanation of how this works.
I totally forgot what I said that made that relevant.
Don't do drugs, kids.
Yeah, fuck. I'm too stoned to remember that. That's not fair.
A lot of drugs are crystals, aren't they?
Yeah, they are. You can, through a process that I can't define, generate crystal THC. out of some bud, and they basically, like, it's a process where they actually allow the THC to just kind of exit the flower under pressure, and it accumulates as crystals, like clear ass crystals too. They're not cloudy whatsoever. And I guess
really
then after
good.
that, yeah, I've got some right now. It's shit.
Shatter?
It's like it's like 100% THC.
Yeah, but
It's literally
that's
a lump of.
it's extract, dude. That's
What
not,
color
it's
is
not
it?
really a crystal.
It's clear.
It's
Well,
a
no,
glass.
like I
It
did
looks like,
seem to read. I mean, I did read about it. There was something about the crystalline structure of THC in like Wikipedia. These crystals are everywhere in biology.
Pollen is the crystals are on the flower, and it's the
Yeah,
it's
and
the
they're
pollen.
they're like tetrahedrons
Mm-hmm.
under a microscope. It's really strange. They're very geometric.
Very small too.
Mm-hmm.
I'd imagine quite a few drugs are salts, and I think salts are crystals, right?
Yeah, methamphetamines especially it's a type of salt. And that's like Breaking Bad. You remember the tray, and they would break it, and it's all these little crystal pieces.
I didn't see Breaking Bad, but I heard it was real good.
Oh,
Yeah,
it's
the only-
excellent.
The only part that I really know of, I want to see it. It's like this old dude in a wheelchair goes to see this black guy, and the wheelchair has like a fucking service bell on it, and he keeps pulling it and ringing it, and his wheelchair is rigged up to a bomb. And then the black guy realizes this, and he goes, "Ah!" And then he blows up, and then he walks out of the fucking room and adjusts his tie, and the camera pans to the other side of his face, and all the meat is hanging out, and you can hear squelching, and like see the fine muscles like controlling his eye movements and shit before he falls over dead. It was sick.
Yeah, that was Gus.
The black guy was Gus.
Yeah, he's the guy that owned the Los Pollos Hermanos.
Is he cool or not cool?
He was one of the drug pushers, and he got taken out by the other gang.
Oh.
It's a very good show if anybody has not seen it.
Meth chicken. So yeah, like you said, Luke, the vast majority of pharmaceuticals you'll consume are actually in the form of hydrochloride, a salt. Anytime you see HCl, hydrochloride, that implies a salt.
I was looking over some of my favorite PC games as a kid and realizing how fucking old I am, and I realized that most of my heroes were motivated by collecting soda and gemstones. It was their primary concern. Jazz Jackrabbit comes to mind. The first planet he goes to is Diamondus, which is utterly encrusted with crystals. That's actually a motif we see in the Bible. The wall around the temple was encrusted with jewels and crystals in a certain order.
Oh, that's fascinating. So they ordered it by its metaphysical significance, I guess, by some kind of like Kabbalic associations with them.
I would imagine I don't know, honestly.
Luke, the Kabbalah man doesn't know.
Oh, it could be some kind of earth energy computer, which this is really interesting that like crystals and diamonds are always viewed as like, why are they rare and coveted? Is because they can actually be used for things and they can amplify signals. So like you're talking about Jazz Jackrabbit, like collecting these on a planet completely covered with crystals, but there's also a legend that the city of Atlantis actually operated on a type of technology that utilized crystals.
Oh, this is popular in the
and
New
it's
Age.
very, very interesting stuff, like that they would have computers and machines built using these crystals that would vibrate with frequencies, and that was how the information would pass. And there were no wires or any connections needed because it was all like, I don't know, maybe like quantumly linked or something. I don't really know how that works, but like, it's funny that you mentioned Jazz because I remember playing Echo the Dolphin when I was a kid, and remember the glyphs. They're those big, like, it looks like a quartz crystal that you have to like move to get through the end of the level. And they
sonar ping it and it bounces back.
They're actually doors. You have to bring it like a code to get out of the level. And usually it's a riddle that you have to answer. It's just interesting because it's like a door that's programmed to take a password, but it's a crystal. Then later in the game, you find a time machine in the city of Atlantis, and it's all crystal stuff. Like, it's very cool.
So what you opened up with about crystals being used in computing too, like both of y'all said something interesting, because quartz crystals are actually, and we'll get to this in depth later, are actually being explored as like a new type of data storage for computers. And they can store like vast amounts more information than any modern hard drive that we have.
So explain it to me like I'm 5. The general usage of quartz crystal is that it holds a stable frequency?
Yes.
Yeah.
It has a resonance frequency. And so if you put input energy, it has a constant wave function, right? Like it never changes. So
it's like a clock.
Yeah, you can use it to count. That's what you make the satellite clock.
Sorry, I got excited because quartz is like super fascinating shit.
Go for it.
Yeah, it's used in watches. You've ever seen those quartz watches? It's because a vibrating piece of quartz under pressure inside the watch is used to keep time.
Yeah, and it doesn't really need much electricity to do either. It's very efficient.
What's
Yeah,
funny is that one of our best episodes is The Devil of Time, where we discuss some of these motifs as they relate to the 15th card of the Major Arcana, or the Devil, because Adam and Eve are a lot like the electro and the magnetic, which create electromagnetism.
It's the only medium of energy that can travel through empty space. Really hard for me to wrap my head around.
Here's the thing, it also has a back and forth to it to create the sine wave. It's this
an
back
oscillation.
it's an oscillation, thank you. And it's this
Crest and
oscillation which creates electromagnetism, and the universal constant for matter is bound up in the speed of light, and then that conversion between energy and mass. And that's like the devil sitting enthroned on the mass, you know, on that big rock. It's called Lord of the Gates of Matter for this reason. He's the Lord of Light, and he's a keeper of time. And it's interesting that quartz crystal works by keeping, it bounces between two poles, right? It keeps a resonant frequency, and that's what makes it
periodic.
valuable. It's periodic.
It repeats constantly, and it never random or never fluctuates.
It's super fascinating. It's like when I was a kid and I learned this, it initially is what got me thinking about the metaphysical. What else is interesting is that quartz crystal is extremely good at, I don't know the technical term for this, but changing the types of energy that are going through it. It can easily take mechanical energy and make it into heat or even electricity.
Isn't it semiconductor?
Yeah, and of course, like the chemical formula of like the chemical name for quartz is silicon dioxide. It's mostly silicon, like a computer chip.
And isn't silicon a type? It's not a type of metal, is it? But it has metallic like properties.
It's a metalloid.
Right.
Isn't that what they make fleshlights out of?
Yeah, silicone.
Silicone, not con.
Yeah.
Silicon is like a computer chip.
Are they related?
A silicone, no, is a it's a poly. It's a polymer, but it's not. It's silicone. It's not really it's not a plastic.
It's a
really.
goo.
It's kind of like it is a type of plastic, but it's different. It has different properties than plastic sometimes. It's more like between rubber and it's artificial like rubber or something.
And this was Fleshlights with Mari Sama.
I mean, it's not just fleshlights. I always remember silicone like a cone shape, like boobs. Silicone is the plastic material. Silicon is like sounds like a robot, so that's how I remember it.
So the periodic table goes 1 through 18, and I can see here that silica is right underneath carbon, which is what both we're made of and what diamonds are made of.
Oh,
So
guys, this is super
a diamond.
fascinating.
So a diamond is a crystalline structure of carbon, whereas quartz is a type of crystalline structure of silicone or silicon. God damn it.
Here's something super fascinating too. So,
and
like I said earlier,
Sorry, and they're in the same column right next to each other on the periodic table of elements, which I think is interesting.
They relate to each other.
okay.
Go dingus.
Thanks. So yeah, this is something I thought was super fascinating, and I brought up that crystals play a major role in biological development earlier because a crystal is like essentially a basic and stable geometric structure that matter arranges itself in. And
Self-organized.
yeah, it's self-organized. You can see like your teeth are technically crystals as well as your bones. Anytime like a mineral accumulates to make some solid matter in your body, that's a crystal. But also, it is theoretically possible to have silica-based life forms because it stacks up on itself and links up with itself in a variety of chemical compositions
Like
in
carbon.
a way that's very similar to carbon. Yeah.
Like carbon.
Okay, got it.
You know how we eat carbohydrates? Those types of beings would eat something that's like a carbohydrate, but it's made out of silica instead. So they would probably eat rocks.
It's silica and oxygen. Well, there's certainly energy in it.
Yeah. Or something it's attached to other like hydrogen. It might be a different. That's why carbon, and you see how carbon is further up on it's more simple.
Yeah.
It's a simpler iteration, except carbon and silica, because they're in the same column, they can accept the same bonds from different atoms, right? So So they can bond similarly, but you're going to get different compounds. And because carbon is so much more abundant in the universe, that's why we mostly see carbon. Like we haven't seen anything other than carbon life forms because it's just so bioavailable.
Really simple and easy for carbon to just create organic compounds in nature. This is
Right.
essentially how viruses are formed. Just it happens spontaneously with matter.
Right.
And carbon reacts so readily with so many substances because its outer shell is only 2 electrons. It leaves it with 4 more to react with, I believe.
It
I
can
don't
either
think
give
that's right.
them up or it can accept more from other things, and it loves to bond with stuff to fill up that outer shell.
And here's something else fascinating that we were talking about earlier with Jazz Jackrabbit, the crystal planet, and the abundance of carbon. Silica or silicon is so abundant in the Earth's crust that quartz crystals they're the second most abundant form of matter and mineral deposit in the planet. They're
Yep.
used everywhere.
And there's many different types of them too. Like an amethyst is a type of quartz.
So I
So-
just ran the numbers real quick, and we've already sort of begun to talk about diamonds and how diamonds are made of carbon and how there probably is some religious qualities ascribed to diamonds. First of all, for their hardness, the word diamond is derived from the ancient Greek adamas, which means proper, unalterable, unbreakable, or untamed. It comes also from damiao, which means I overpower, and I tame. So it's a perfect thing for the diamond dogs because that means they're the hardest motherfuckers out there.
It's also fascinating because diamond is so rare that it's just been historically associated with royalty and status.
But you want to know something really interesting? Is diamond, the crystalline structure of diamond is actually a shifted form of graphite. So diamond is literally the same it's the same exact matter as the lead in your pencil.
Yeah, so it's
Something
kind of like
common and cheap as that, but when it's under a lot of pressure and heat, the periodic structure of the crystal, the repeating part of the atomic structure in that material, the molecules actually shift and compact together, much like what happens when water goes from liquid to ice. They kind of move together and they compact, and they become much harder, and light and energy can go through them much more efficiently. Carbon is right? A diamond is a semiconductor, and if you throw it into like smelted metal, diamonds won't melt. They just heat it. They take on all the heat, and then they just dissipate it. They're
What?
almost they're indestructible. That's why people use diamond-coated saws, saw blades, and drill bits to cut through other substances. That's why diamonds can cut stuff.
Wait a minute. So from a David Bowie Metal Gear Solid point of view, when a diamond dog descends into hell, they're cool. They're chill.
Well, we're able to
take the pressure.
Yeah, we can take the pressure and the energy that's put through us and basically just pass it right along as if lightning was going straight through your body and went and hit something else. It's like how Tai Chi teaches you to move the opponent's chi through your body. Like we're able to do that.
Hideo Kojima is a fucking genius. One of the magical powers of diamond is it makes you invisible.
Yes, it
Oh,
passes
that's
light
super
through
cool.
you. Yeah.
There's also a place in the Bible where it might come up, and this is in Revelations. And he causeth all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand or in their foreheads, and that no man might buy or sell, save that he had the mark, or the name of the beast, or the number of his name. Here is wisdom! Let him that hath understanding count the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man, and his number is 666.
666. I fucking love Iron Maiden.
So going back to the periodic table of nerddom, we can see that carbon has 6 protons, which means it usually has 6 neutrons, and we should hope it has 6 electrons. It's stable, right? So it's a 666, just like in the Bible.
Yeah, it is. When I saw that as a kid, I thought that was really fascinating. And through my religious fundamentalist perspective, I was like, "Wow, God knows."
Well, it's more associated with the devil, right? Because God knows that. I get what you're saying. Got it. Okay.
Yeah, look, everything good is Jesus, and everything bad is not Jesus. Duh.
Okay, so we spoke earlier about how carbon can form stable bonds, similar to how what we said silica could. So when combined with oxygen and hydrogen, carbon can form many groups of important biological compounds, including sugars, lignins, chitins, alcohols, fats, aromatic esters, carotenoids, terpenes, With nitrogen, it forms alkaloids. And with the addition of sulfur, it also forms antibiotics, amino acids, and rubber products. With the addition of phosphorus to these other elements, it forms DNA and RNA, the chemical code carriers of life, and adenosine and triphosphate, ATP, the most important energy transfer molecule in living cells.
I'm sorry, I just have to throw this out there. It's not adenosine and triphosphate, it's adenosine triphosphate. I'm sorry, I don't want to be that guy.
Lucifer is another word for phosphorus. The Latin word corresponding to Greek phosphorus is Lucifer. Phosphorus means light bringer and is the morning star. When phosphorus is combined with the elements above and carbon, it forms our very DNA. So in the old Greek legend, when Prometheus created us, there was some chemistry going on there.
Hey, where are we in the notes?
Yeah, I don't even know where you are.
I jumped down into Diamond because we were talking so much about it. But that more or less concludes what I wanted to talk about with Diamond.
It is like the king of the crystals. Let's not lie about it.
It's also seen like magically as an amplifier. Just wearing a diamond or involving it in some kind of magical practice will make your spell more powerful.
It's similar to a quartz, but it's more powerful. But did you know that there's a type of quartz called a Hermiker diamond, I think?
Herkimer diamond.
I know about this because Dan Aykroyd was selling Crystal Head vodka.
God, y'all got to watch that commercial. It's so funny.
I drank Crystal Head vodka. It's pretty good.
It's all right.
I want to pick one up just for the skull.
Anyway, they're actually quartz crystals. People are like, that's not a diamond. That's not a real diamond. Yeah, duh. But what makes them special is they're only found in a certain place in New York. And who knows why this happened. And this, again, crystals form. They're intimately involved with where and when and the environment that they're formed in. But like Herkimer diamonds. God, I have trouble like remembering how to Herkimer.
Okay. We
like
can't
it's
all
fucking hard to say.
Herkimer.
Herkimer? Okay.
Pretty sure.
So Herkimer diamonds, usually a quartz crystal has one termination, which is the point of it, where all the facets come together in a point. These guys have double termination points, so they look like little diamonds. But most crystals you find will have one termination point. That's what makes it special, is it has a dual point.
We got to get Dan Aykroyd on the show.
I love him so much.
You think he'll let us? I do too.
Oh, yeah, he would come on here.
Think he'll let us fucking do a pitch for Crystal Head vodka?
Yes.
He actually sold the company, unfortunately.
Oh.
He had to make some money.
I guess that's why he started it.
Malicor's just hanging around in the fucking chat at work, here to disappoint us with his knowledge.
The bottle is actually modeled after his skull, but yeah.
Ooh.
Weird.
So if carbon forms diamonds and we're 666, is that the reason why in Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, when they asked the supercomputer thing what the answer to the universe was, it's 42 because silica 14 times 3 is 42, and so that's like its version of 666?
That would be an interesting answer.
That's fascinating.
Interesting detail, yeah. I mean, if the writer actually thought of that, that was cool.
I think it was supposed to be like obligatorily random so that you didn't understand it, but
well, if a human who's supposed to have wisdom should contemplate the number of quote unquote its deeper nature, right? The beast 666, maybe a computer would come to the same conclusion about itself, especially if it had a similar biological structure to it or chemical structure to it.
And that's another thing is we were talking about, there can be silica-based life form that's natural, but it might be more likely that a carbon-based life form will create that type of life form.
It is interesting.
Like a AI or a robot or a android could be composed of this.
It's difficult to find the conditions in nature where silica would react in mass like that, because it often does need pressure and heat.
Mm-hmm. So they'd live like on a hot rock planet with lava everywhere or something, and we couldn't even talk to them if they even existed. But if we could make computer people, I think computers are pretty much a step up from carbon life forms in that regard. Not that they're like function the same way, but you know what I mean. This
is kind of like maybe a little bit off topic, but I really love prog rock, and there's this band, Yes, that some of you may have heard of. I think they're okay, but the lead singer, John Anderson, is also like a big synthesizer, like God from the 70s, and he has this interesting little quote where people ask about He was being asked about the synthesizer and how it's different from instruments people would typically call organic and natural. And he says it comes from far deeper into the earth than I. He was implying that it was actually more natural and organic than anything that any sound that, or as natural and organic as any sound he could make. There you go.
Amen.
Yeah.
Trans Europe Express. So everything we've talked about thus far falls under the category of crystals. The word crystal derives from the ancient Greek kristallos, meaning both ice and rock crystal, from kruos, which meant icy cold or frost.
Oh, that's interesting.
Basically, if you're going to talk about a crystal, like a pure crystal, like we were just discussing, diamonds is a perfect example of that, because they're usually a good diamond is nearly flawless and it doesn't have any inclusions. Basically, it's not mixed with anything. It's either a molecular or an atomic material, and it's pure, right? So also table salt, sodium chloride. Now that's a small molecule, but it does form crystals, and they're little squares. And then snowflakes, which is water, H2O, that's a slightly larger molecule, and it forms into, like, its purest crystalline form would be a snowflake that grows like that. Solid ice is more like glass, which is if you were to melt silica or quartz crystals, if you melt them at a high temperature and then let them cool really quickly, you're going to get a glass, which is not necessarily a crystal anymore because it's out of order. It's not orderly or periodic anymore.
Kind of just like a silica paste, really.
It's an amorphous solid at that point. But usually when people think of crystals, they think of, like a rock with some, crystals sticking out of it and some sparklies on the bottom of it. That would be a polycrystal, or any kind of rock or mineral is usually a polycrystal, including metals and ceramics. And ice would also, like I was saying, ice isn't a crystal anymore because it has so many, the atoms have not lined up perfectly in certain areas. So that's what makes it not crystalline, is these errors in the atomic or the molecular structure of the repetition of the crystal. Sorry if that's hard to understand, but
inappropriate geometry.
Yes, if it just looks out of whack. And that's why people want pure crystals like diamonds, rubies, emeralds. These things are usually very pure, and you can find good clean stones with these things. But I mean, stuff like silica, it's mixed with everything because it likes to bond to stuff.
And I mean, really, a crystal is defined by its geometric structure.
Correct. At a microscopic level, yes.
And it's this crystalline structure in general which separates these solids from every other type of solids, which we would consider amorphous solids, where the atoms have no periodic structure. Examples being glass, wax, and plastics, right?
Mm-hmm. And don't forget our friend silicone.
Haha, titty.
Maybe that's why the Terminator in 2 can morph as he does, because of that thing he said. So it makes sense when somebody calls their bling ice. That's actually the original meaning of crystal anyway. So
yes, and metals are also a type of polycrystal. So metals technically are crystals. And there are some metals that grow like crystals, like bismuth. You have to grow it in a lab, like it doesn't naturally occur, but it's really, really cool looking. And then pyrite is a type of, like, there's other types of metallic minerals that grow in these weird shapes. Pyrite grows either in these flat discs between rocks, and they look like little sand dollars, or they grow in these beautiful cube structures. So if you want to grow a crystal, basically the difference between making glass and then growing crystals would be the amount of time that you cool the substance. So if that's why snow has a crystalline structure, whereas hail doesn't. In the cloud, the water molecules get tossed up and down, and they're slowly cooling as they get tossed around, and then a snowflake falls. But hail forms faster.
I was gonna bring that up earlier too, because like the development of a water crystal is actually kind of like a process. It takes a lot of specific conditions, and it needs to be up in the atmosphere for a certain amount of time.
Yep, and just like rocks and crystals, they have to be in a certain place in the ground. Certain things have to happen over a certain period of time, and then you get a special type of crystal.
And this is called crystallization, a process in which a group of ordered atoms and molecules grow in a lattice and acquire new segments. The pieces are aligned and added onto the lattice. This can only be attained in strictly contained and slow cooling environments. Like you said, it can't just happen quickly. So the lattice is timed to assemble in its most orderly way possible. Artificial crystals are seeded by a small piece of perfect lattice and must be grown over long periods of time. This is why naturally occurring crystals are so rare and special, because the environment needed to produce them is a rare coincidence, and they carry a signature essence of the area in which they were mined.
Yeah, I always think that's cool because, and we'll get into this later when you're working with magic, especially if you like to do a lot of earth magic or tap into the energy of the entire planet. These are very helpful for that because say I order a crystal from like near Stonehenge, I can actually harness that energy from the physical object. Like you get a piece of,
It's like distilled essence of Earth.
right. So the location of your crystal, where you get your crystal from, is almost just as important as what you're getting.
I get mine in a little baggie from a trailer.
Oh yeah.
So you telling me Herkimer Diamond can only be found under my house, and that's the reason you need to bulldoze it?
Yeah, only in New York though.
So we need to bulldoze the house because they're looking for the fucking bodies.
What
These old-
bodies? I buried
Look.
those near the river. I'm kidding. I'm talking about the...
Look, he's just old. He's losing it. Actually, don't mind him. He wouldn't harm a fly.
I can hunt with a crossbow
You know.
on
This
fire.
is up, but that reminds me. I hope one day we do an episode on Richard Kuklinski. He was a contract killer with over like 200 confirmed kills, and he has this one story about how he got a crossbow and he was just checking it out and he wanted to see if it worked. So he just beckoned this man over to his car, and the guy stuck his head down into the window and he put a bolt in his forehead. The way he put it in the story was somebody asked him, "Did it work?" And he went, "It did."
So both the bolt and the ice in the Iceman are technically both types of crystals.
He's a very hard man. Yeah.
All right, so how would we use crystals in magic?
This is actually really interesting. You can do a lot of things with. I know that a lot of people like to just simply wear them out and about, or they like to watch them and gaze at them or meditate with them. You know, there's really no limit to what you can do as long as you're creative. Mari did something interesting with it, if you wouldn't mind sharing it. She showed me a picture of her altar.
Oh yeah.
A crystal grid?
Yeah, I mean, we'll get into that. Do you want to read this fun fact I found? Because I thought it was cool. Actually, as of 1999, the world's largest known naturally occurring crystal is a crystal of beryl from Madagascar, and it's 18 meters long or 59 feet long and 11 feet in diameter.
Holy shit! How much does that
Giant.
thing weigh?
840,000 pounds.
Holy
Wow,
fuck!
that's awesome.
It's like heavier than I can imagine.
But dude, it's a barrel, you guys. Check it out. Told
So
you
we-
about that rock.
So we can abscond with said barrel on religious grounds
Yeah, it all belongs to us.
as a holy war.
All rubies, emeralds, all of that shit. That's ours.
It says that in the Book of the Law as well. So that's one thing you are supposed to do as the Thelemite is gather spices, gems, and in some cases whammons, if you're into that.
Precious things of the earth. And also the emerald tablets of Thoth were very interesting to me because we chose this type of gem.
Because emerald is a type of beryl, correct?
Yes, it is. And the only reason, like, you'll hear of a type of gem which would refer to the periodic like the lattice, like what's the geometrical shape of the lattice. But then you have these other minerals and substances get inside the rock and cause impurities. So that's when you start to get different colors of stones. So quartz has all these different colors that you can get it in, but it's the purest form of quartz is of course clear white. And then there are purer forms of beryl that are a light blue or almost nearly white. But then you have darker ones. So it depends on what's in it. So it's not even just the crystalline structure alone. It's like what impurities are in it as well.
There are really so many varieties of quartz and ways that quartz are used that we could make a whole episode on it.
Oh, I totally. But we got to probably glaze over. I mean, there's so many stones that you could be using, but we'll just give you some guidelines on how you can actually integrate it into whatever you're doing.
Hey, wait, before we do that, I'd just like to mention, a lot of people like to put crystals in water and drink it. You probably shouldn't do that. It's not good for you at all.
Well, you can. You have to make sure you know what the fuck you're doing. I've included a list that we can put up about toxicity of gems, but you really shouldn't take risks if you don't know what you're doing.
It's in the notes.
Some of them, like malachite, if you put into water, it will actually dissolve, and if you drink it, you will get copper toxicity.
It's poison, yeah.
Mhm.
It also reacts with your stomach acid. So there's a lot of shit. Don't use these in potions or internally unless you know what you're doing. Dingus, you were talking about just how people meditate on them.
Yeah.
Because it's
something I like to do.
And I use them too. I'll get lost in the rock and it helps me focus on my intention and and open myself up. But some people
Alright.
use it for scrying. They use them for scrying or ball gazing, which would make you go into a trance-like state. So it helps trancing you out for meditation. And it also amplifies, if you have an intention or a mantra, it also amplifies your psychic, whatever psychic activity you're going through.
Honestly, when I hold them, I kind of feel like a bubble form around me, like energy is bending around the crystal.
Well, it's integrating into your electromagnetic field, right? Because
Yeah.
it's either a semiconductor, conductor, or whatever. It's going to move the energy through it. So what you're doing is you're feeling its field meld into yours. That's why people use them as protection amulets a lot, because it does this like repelling thing. It, like, you know, when you draw a circle when you do a ritual, a lot of stones actually have that aura energy, that what you would use a circle for protection.
It's actually really fascinating too, because when I was a kid, I was probably what you could call preoccupied with gems and like stones and shit. I would actually like the dryer got beat up because I kept taking rocks and quartz crystals home and leaving them in my pockets. But I would just like pick one up and stare at it for like 30 fucking minutes because I felt like they had some kind of magical power to them.
They're very interesting. And like, why do you think, like, when you see a fortune teller or a like gypsy stereotype, I don't or Roma stereotype, I guess is the proper term now. Why do, like, lots of divination is done with a crystal ball and or like some type of mirror, or they're called gazing balls. You can get those too.
And scrying mirrors, like an obsidian mirror is a popular one.
Now,
Yeah.
there's a difference between obsidian and other quote-unquote crystals. It's not accurate to call obsidian a crystal, correct?
Black, yeah.
It's a melted crystal. It's a natural glass. So it has no repeating pattern and it can't conduct electricity, but it's easily malleable and you can make tools out of it. I use obsidian for grounding. You can also use it for scrying, and it's very interesting in that it doesn't reflect much light. So it's like
Looking
the
at your
opposite of
reflection
looking.
on a phone screen.
Yeah, but it's like the opposite of looking into a light crystal ball that you can see inside of it. It's like looking into opaque darkness instead. And it's very grounding in that, like, you know, we were talking about amorphous solids. Well, the reason they don't conduct electricity is because when they receive energy, it actually neutralizes it.
But yeah, it can't travel through the medium.
Correct. So an obsidian is a perfect choice if you're trying to calm your energy down.
Obsidian is a hard, brittle, and amorphous stone, and therefore fractures with sharp edges. In the past, it was used to manufacture cutting and piercing tools. It has been used experimentally as surgical scalpel blades. And I know from experience that you can find obsidian arrowheads if you're lucky.
Oh yeah, those are my favorite.
Yeah, they're cool.
I just thought it was cool that glass can form in the ground. And you know what else is cool is natural glass also forms around. It's a volcanic rock. Okay. Obsidian comes out. It's heated silica that cools extremely fast and turns dark because it's burnt by lava.
So it comes from hell.
Yes.
It comes from hell, Maury.
It's basically crystals melting out of the ground and turning into glass. That's what it is.
I feel like the fact that it turns dark actually kind of implies some kind of carbon content.
Yes, it does. And then you have what are called tektites, or moldavite is a type of tektite, or tourmaline. I believe tourmaline also has something to do with this, but I know for sure tektite is a glass that's formed in these long, stringy formations. I think this is tourmaline is a type of this. It forms after meteors strike the Earth. So when the meteor incinerates the ground that it hits and explodes, all of the stuff in the ground is heated up and cooled so quickly that the crystals around there form into glass. So there are natural glasses.
Yeah,
But there are burnt crystals that have melted and reformed into an amorphous solid.
there's actually a couple of really interesting versions of this too. I know that there's like a unique kind of glass or crystal that you can't find anywhere else in the world at White Sands, New Mexico, because of the nuclear tests.
Whoa.
The glass would get burned up and then shot up into the atmosphere where it would cool off like way up in the sky and fall back to the ground. And it would cool off rapidly because it's fucking cold up there.
Yeah.
And I also know that when lightning strikes sand, it will also produce a crystal or a glass. It's got like this electric blue-green color. It's cool.
Yeah, so it does happen. We're not the only ones that make glass.
Speaking of green glass and buku crystals,
that you could pick up from a store. There is always Moldavite. The meaning of the name Moldavite relates to the Moldau River in the Czech Republic, which is the only place in the world that it is found. A meteorite of enormous size is known to have crashed in the mountainous region of the Czech Republic about 15 million years ago. Its impact is said to have more power than even those atomic explosions we just spoke of. This amazing stone was created by the heat of an incredible impact, which gave it an incredible force. The aerodynamic shape suggests that in all likelihood, this attractive green stone fell from the heavens. This event is believed to have produced melted material that fell to earth and created these beautiful green crystals. The stones often have dark inclusions within them, and it is suggested that this may be a combination of meteoric matter and material from the area which it crashed. The heat generated may have melded them together. Note, although some scientists believe this to be an extraterrestrial origin, this quote-unquote could not be confirmed. But we all know it's Lucifer's crystal crown. Crown emerald.
Nature is fucking violent, dude.
Moldavite isn't an emerald, but I mean, it's often used. It's used in Kundalini awakening, like trying to make an awakening happen in someone. So it's an extremely high energy stone because of that. And it fucks with your head more so than your lower. Like, it's not very grounding. It's very high energy. And then a lot of people that work with it that don't need that much energy, they feel sick because it's just so much at once. And I think that, I mean, I guess it's because it was struck by a fucking meteor. So maybe it has some, residual power in it, but
nuclear diamond.
I have some jewelry made out of it that's cut, which is very cool. And then I have a little stone of it. And actually, it is completely safe to use in tinctures and potions if you want to do that.
Space
Can I
water.
add something here real quick?
Sure.
Yes, specifically about Moldavite, the region in the Czech Republic where it's from is where a lot of the golem stories come from in like Jewish magic. And it's because there's so much Moldavite in the clay that they use to build these things that modern day like occultists, scientists, anthropologists people, they think that that's why they were able to like animate them and give them life.
Because of the crystal content of the golem itself?
Yes.
And that they were so high energy, maybe it could actually move the stone.
Yeah, when you put the names, well, like the name of God on it with the shin, like Joshua pretty much, yeah, it'll activate it, and until you erase the name, the golems would go to sleep.
God is a robot.
It's just a homunculus for God.
Pretty much.
It's a very sophisticated computer.
I didn't know that. That's really cool, but you can also use your body with crystals. I mean, you can use them for healing rituals.
Yeah, if it works with clay, like inanimate objects, it should do wonders for you.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people use Moldavite for healing, but only in basically like if you're terminally ill or it's to help you get through something really bad. I used it to get out of my dark night of the soul. So
I'd just like to throw this out there.
It does work.
It's probably not going to shrink that conspicuously twitching tumor on your neck.
No.
Yeah, go to a doctor, please.
No, but with maladies of the soul, it does. It's kind of like a laxative in that it'll blow out your chakra system.
Super colon blow.
Yeah, super Kundalini blow.
Listen, there's a technical phrase attached to this. It's called Moldavite flush.
Yeah, that explains it.
That's what it's called, Moldavite flush. That's the colloquial term for what you are joking about right now.
How accessible is one of these crystals? How much would it cost to get a piece of Moldavite?
They're a little bougie, but they're affordable.
They're kind of pricey. Yeah.
It's kind of pricey. You'll get a small piece, but be careful because there's been a shit ton of counterfeit Moldavite from China hitting the markets all over eBay, everywhere. I would buy in person, and I've even think I bought from somebody at like an art fair or something, and I'm like, really, your Moldavite's that cheap? And I like got home and looked at it. I'm like, I'm pretty sure this is a piece of glass.
Yeah, it's actually surprising though. Like you can get some pretty good specimen of like emerald and ruby and all sorts of interesting and precious gemstones for cheaper than you can think. It's just that they're not cut and set in a ring. They have a bit of rough on them.
It's not even that. It's like you can make glass. I mean, it's obviously natural glass. You can just make something out of glass that looks kind of like it, but it's kind of hard to tell because they're both a type of glass. Whereas you can't fake a ruby with glass or like an uncut, gem.
Because gems refract light in like very interesting and distinct ways, I forget
Yeah.
all the categories that they use to kind of quantify this, but I know you have brilliance. I know you have flare.
That's with
Refract-
lapidary when you're cutting.
Hmm.
It's only when you're cutting the stone. But you can find a raw stone and measure the brightness, or the carats would be like the weight of a diamond, or, you know.
Yeah, the mass will never lie.
To wrap up the free show, let's talk a little bit more about how
Aw.
to use these things in Magic.
I was going to say, I was going to move on to that.
Let's do it.
'Cause
Let's
we're-
talk about that real quick because for the extended show, I got to talk a little bit more about Obsidian.
All right. Well, so get back to healing. I mean, a lot of Reiki practitioners use this as well. I forgot to mention, like, you can use it in other divination stuff, like tarot cards. You can use them to enhance what you're doing. But the Reiki, you can use your body like an altar and place different crystals depending on what. I usually study the chakra system for this. I mean, apparently you can do this with chi or any other kind of body energy system. Also, it works with reflexology, which is some kind of. It's like it's almost like acupuncture, but you're like massaging instead. And then a lot of stones are cut in like wands or points that you can use to massage like pressure points on the body. So like you can use different shaped cut stones to achieve different things when you're working in a healing ritual. And then this is where we were talking about making potions. I did a ritual where I have a crystal chalice and I soaked some specimens in some water and did some magic a little while ago. I have a crystal chalice. You can get crystal knives. I mean, you can make your altar up out of this stuff too.
I want a fucking raw jade altar.
And you can make potions out of them. But like we were talking about earlier, please check the link that we're going to provide to make sure if you're going to do this, check the toxicity. If you're not sure how to do potions with this, don't do it. But you can definitely place the stone on your body and get the same kind of effect. But I would recommend not using internally until you study the toxicity.
If you ingest anything that reacts and produces lead, you are actually lowering your IQ.
Yeah, we don't want that.
No shit.
Yeah, we're trying to heal, not.
I think being dumber could make life a little better.
So another thing that they're used for is because they're so good at like storing energy, and they're either a semiconductor or a conductor of energy. So they can amplify energy or contain it and trap it. You can use it for environment building if you want to build up your room or have a meditation area feel very grounded and natural. You could use them there. Design your environment. Another way to do that, if you have an altar, I really enjoy doing crystal grids because the crystal itself is it's like a platonic. They're like platonic solids almost. They're like the most natural fundamental form of geometry in the universe. And it just naturally, right? So I like mixing mathematics, or you can even use old sigils like the like Metatron seal, or you could use the Seal of Solomon or any of those things and just and line up your crystals with it. Make a picture out of them on your altar, and you can actually channel the energy through the sigil that way. I find that very fun. And people will also I've seen people selling bandanas with like screen prints of stuff on it that you're basically supposed to lay it out and then put your crystals over it to
That's cool.
imbibe energy into the sigil. So it's a very, very cool way to practice. I think that's very fun. So
Can you imbue a sigil into a crystal? Can you put like the energy of a sigil into a crystal?
Yeah, like that's what I don't know if you guys have heard of casting rune stones, but a lot of rune stones are made out of semi-precious stones because of that.
Sometimes the variety of stone that they use will dictate like the kind of reading that you do with that rune.
Exactly.
I know that jade runes are often used for readings about love and relationships. Stone runes are usually used for readings about just natural challenges. Gold runes are obviously for money, so on and so forth.
Yeah, so you use associations, and I like using the chakra colors because there's like a whole rainbow that you can apply it to with that system.
That's what I do.
Because you said jade is like for heart matters, which your heart chakra is literally green. It's also has a pink color to it. Sometimes people describe pink because a pink heart, right? Like I love
rose
pink
quartz.
Heart. Yeah, rose quartz is the heart stone, but other people don't realize that there's also the heart chakra is literally green in the old texts. So green stuff, like that's why Moldavite works so well because it opens your third eye. It opens your like crown area, but it's a heart stone. So it's drawing the energy up from your lower chakras and blasting it through your crown. That's why it feels That's why it feels unstable to some people.
Now,
So,
in the olden times, it was said that you could place an emerald in your mouth to speak to the spirits of the dead. I noticed in your toxicity chart here that emerald was actually safe, if of course it is actually emerald.
yes, a lot
do
of
that.
pure,
Just don't
and that's
swallow
why
it.
pure stones are very, very sought after, especially back then because they were not toxic.
Well, chromium as an element is actually something that your body needs to, and beryls and chrome, or beryls and jades, are both chrome-based crystals.
But it's not like there's not so many. The reason is because the crystal is so solid and stable, it's not going to let out much of that. You're not going to get so much off bleed because it's already stable. But if you put something like asbestos in your mouth, yeah, you're dead because it'll just dissolve into your spit because it's unstable. It's not as stable as a diamond or an emerald is.
Let's talk about one that you don't want to put in water or put in your
the-
body. And that's a common one you can get at a New Age store. That would be selenite.
And malachite, both very dangerous. Yes.
Selenite is very pretty, though, and I believe it's considered give me a minute, a fiber optic rock, basically.
Yeah, it grows in these weird fibers and they like cluster together in this chunk. So it conducts light in like one way, but the other way it looks opaque. But if you ingest that stuff, I mean, it's like they are fibers of like stone. So you're going to like puncture your insides with that stuff.
I'm just guessing right now, but okay, so selenite would have a high selenium content, right?
Yes.
Selenium is an essential brain nutrient, but if you ingest too much of it, like it can actually fuck your shit up.
Correct.
And in crystal form, think about how many of those atoms are connected together in a long straight line, and I don't think they might want to break off.
It's more of
easily,
that mass.
So it'll cut you.
You got to think about it. Like selenium is measured in shit like fucking micrograms. You know, there's not enough selenium in even the most high content selenium foods for you to like chew on a solid chunk. If you just eat a chunk of that shit, that's like your whole lifetime value.
Yeah, totally.
And if you dissolve malachite in water and drink that, your chances of getting copper toxicity are like 100%.
Oh yeah, or more.
You'll die.
Before we move on, one other note I thought was really cool is you can't, because crystals can contain, like you can program a intention or a message into them, and they kind of it just like kind of bounces around inside until you quote unquote. But you can use it. I'm thinking you could use it to capture ghosts or spirits, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, a lot of crystals. Like I actually think tourmaline, black tourmaline, is used for this.
Oh, like opaque crystals might be perfect for that kind of thing too. I just thought that was fascinating. You can use it like the Ghostbuster machine. It's like there's what's the ritual that you do where you put a ghost in a pot, where you like banish them in a pot? It's like isn't it an Asian ritual?
That's how the Goetic spirits were sealed away and thrown in a river and then unsealed, as they were put in like vessels, brass vessels.
So apparently these things can work as a vessel as well. So that's cool. I really like using them as talismans though. And most people use them like this. Most people, I mean, they may not even bless the stone or program it, but people will just wear them around for like good luck charms because they like the way they look. An interesting talisman. It's not a crystal, but everybody knows what the evil eye is, right?
Yeah.
It's that little glass thing that they make out of molten glass. It's blue and white, and it looks like a big eye looking at you.
That's actually the Nazar. It protects against the evil eye.
Oh, well, okay. Well, they were always called evil eyes to me, and it's to protect against, bad spirits. But it's much in the same way that is used. Crystals can also be used in that way. You can use them as pendulums. I don't know if you can do divination with pendulums, but what you essentially do is you program the stone. Like say I want to make more money at work, right? Then you would find some gold colored stones or something that has I'm not confident. So I'd find stones for confidence, whatever, and fortune and good fortune. And then you basically make it's kind of like carrying a sigil with you, except it's a piece of rock, and you meditate with it, implant your intention, and then you're supposed to carry it near your body and your clothing somewhere. A lot of people just wear them under their shirt. And it actually protects you as you walk around. So instead of just leaving them on your altar in your house, you could take it to work. It's like taking it to work with you, like a little mini altar.
You brought up pendulums, and I just wanted to throw this small story out there. I once did take like a piece of like the smoky quartz crystal that I had back when I took Adderall. And Adderall would make me want to smoke. And one day I was just desperate to find my fucking cigarettes, but I couldn't find them anywhere. So I fashioned a pendulum out of a string from my bed and I tied it around a piece of quartz. And I actually used it to find my fucking cigarettes. It pointed the way out.
That's so cool. But yeah, that's pretty much how a talisman works, is that you can program it with, like, if you want someone to have good fortune while traveling, then you could put a protection on a stone and then just give it to them to carry in their pocket. So it could be extremely useful in that regard. But you can also do stuff like we were talking about, changing your environment. You don't have to stick it on your own altar. You can make little crystal altars throughout your whole house. Like I keep fluorite next to my computer because it helps block electromagnetic energy stress. So there's all sorts of things that you can do. I know it all sounds like crap, like bullshit, but honestly, I think making the aesthetics of your environment is extremely important to making your magical practice successful, because it's almost like a hypnosis thing, guys.
Well, yeah, like it's easy to achieve trance states by just gazing into crystals, you know? They have an extremely unique look and appearance, and you can just kind of like see things if you gaze through them.
I pretend I'm walking inside of them on top of all the little cracks and crevices. So awesome.
Ah, that's cool.
I don't know. I just kind of like beam my attention through it.
Now, to bring it full circle, back to video games and Satanism, I remember John Carmack discussing how it was pretty much impossible from his perspective, which is usually pretty optimistic in terms of technology, usually believing that we can do it. He said, we can do like the artificial smell thing, but there's literally so many chemicals in the earth and that you can smell that we could like fool you a little bit, but it'll never be exactly right. But you know, Hades, right, who rules over the underworld, he's usually the one who is said to have all the wealth because it's in his domain that where you find all these crystals and rare metals and gems, right?
Yep.
And I was thinking maybe one reason we saw so many crystals and gems, especially in early video games, not just because John Carmack is, you know, clearly borrowed some Satanism and put it into his philosophy, but like you can't ever fake a smell really, but you can kind of fake the luster of a crystal or a diamond depending on how vibrant your technology is, right? Because the pixels and stuff are made from those types of materials. And so when it comes to like hardness or the visual beauty of something, even back in the two-dimensional days, you could kind of like mess with that. And the promise of a computer being able to give you what you don't have, something that's fake and not real, but something that's almost as good as real, that's one thing that virtual reality could promise us someday, is the promise of like infinite jewels, right? Because you can't really taste a jewel, you can't smell a jewel, right? But you can kind of feel it and you can look at it. So I think early video games like have so many friggin' jewels, it's just because they're a precious thing, and then all of a sudden you could just make as many as you want. And they're almost as good as the real thing, right?
No, I want to lay in a fucking pile of jewels forever. I'll be like a fucking dragon in a concrete vault somewhere in the desert. Me and my stack of emeralds.
But to love me is better than all things. If under the night stars in the desert thou presently burnest mine incense before me, invoking me with a pure heart, and the serpent flame therein, thou shalt come to lie in my bosom. For one kiss wilt thou be willing to give all. But whoso gives one particle of dust shall lose all in that hour. Ye shall gather goods and store of women and spices. Ye shall wear rich jewels. Ye shall exceed the nations of the earth in splendor and pride, but always in love of me. And so shall ye come to my joy. I charge you earnestly to come before me in single robe and covered with rich headdress. I love you, I yearn to you, pale and purple, veiled or voluptuous. I, who am all pleasure and purple, and drunkenness, of the innermost sense desire you. Put on the wings and arouse the coiled splendor within you. Come unto me. Thank you, everybody. Eat carrots and shoot lasers.
Collect gems.
I think I liked rocks a lot more as a kid. When I first was introduced to the idea of doing this show topic, I was like, oh no, now we gotta talk about rocks. But then actually rocks are kind of exciting.